You just threw away $24. That cutting sitting in the cup on your windowsill right now, it's going to die. Not because you're a bad gardener, because nobody told you the 7 things that kill cuttings before roots ever have a chance to form. The nursery sells that same hydrangea for $24 a pot, and they are counting on you not knowing what I'm about to show you for free. I've rooted over 300 cuttings in the last 4 years. Hydrangeas, heritage roses, boxwood, knockout roses. Right here on this potting bench, with nothing but a sharp pair of pruners and a $4 bag of perlite. At nursery prices, that's somewhere north of $4,000 in plants I never paid for. My grandmother called it striking. She did it with a glass jar and a windowsill in 1961. No rooting hormone, no heat mat, no misting system. Just the knowledge of exactly where to cut and what to do in the 21 days after. I lost plants too. For 3 years, I couldn't figure out why some cuttings rooted every time and others rotted in a week. I was making 7 specific mistakes, and I didn't know what they were. Every single one of them is on this list. Mistake number 4 is the one that ends more propagation attempts than the other 6 combined. I'll tell you why when we get there, but not yet. Mistake number 1. You're cutting in the wrong place on the stem. This looks like you're doing everything right. Sharp pruners, healthy stem, clean cut. But if you're cutting randomly along that stem, anywhere between 2 leaves or in the middle of a bare section, you are starting from 0 every single time. A plant's ability to produce roots is concentrated at specific points called nodes, the slight swelling where a leaf attaches to the stem. The tissue directly below a node is already primed to become roots. Cut above that node or through the middle of a long bare section, and the rooting signal has nowhere to land. Find a node, that slight thickening where a leaf grows out. Make your cut 1/4 inch below it, not above it, directly below it. 45-degree angle, single clean motion, sharpest blade you own. That angle increases the surface area that can generate roots and prevents water from sitting flat on the cut end and inviting rot. For hydrangeas, 4 to 6 inches long, 10 to 15 centimeters, with at least 2 nodes. The bottom node goes below the soil line. That is your root zone. The top node stays above. That is your growth point. That cut end is now open and vulnerable. This is exactly why mistake number 2 cannot be skipped. Mistake number 2. You're leaving too many leaves on the cutting. Every leaf on that stem is an engine that runs on water, pulling moisture upward constantly, all day. In an established plant, the root system replenishes what the leaves lose. Your cutting has no roots. Every leaf is pulling from a supply that does not yet exist. By day 3, the cutting wilts. By day 7, it collapses. It didn't fail to root, it dehydrated before a single root cell had time to form. Remove every leaf from the bottom half of the cutting. Every single one. For a 6-inch cutting, the bottom 3 inches are bare stem. On the top half, keep 2 leaves only. If those leaves are large, hydrangea-sized, cut each one in half horizontally with clean scissors. You are reducing the surface area that loses water without reducing the stem's stored energy. Day 1 through day 7, the cutting runs entirely on reserves stored in that stem. Fewer leaves pulling at that reserve means a longer survival window before roots arrive. What you put that cutting into, that is where the next failure waits. Mistake number 3. You're using the wrong substrate. Most people reach for the potting mix on the shelf. Potting mix kills cuttings. It is engineered for established plants with full root systems that handle moisture retention. It holds water. For a cutting with no roots, that retained moisture sits against the cut stem end and creates a perfect environment for rot fungi. The stem goes soft and brown from the bottom up. You pull it at 2 weeks. Nothing but a rotted stub. A cutting needs a substrate that holds just enough moisture to keep the stem alive, but drains so fast the cut end never sits in standing wet material. Air pockets around the stem matter equally, because roots grow toward oxygen as much as they grow toward moisture. 50% coarse perlite, $3 to $4 a bag at any garden center, and 50% coarse horticultural sand, not play sand, builder's sand, or horticultural grit. Mix those two, and you have a substrate that drains in under 3 seconds and never stays wet enough to rot a stem end. No perlite? Clean gravel rinsed from your driveway, mixed with a small amount of garden soil, dried in the sun for a full day. Costs nothing. Terracotta container every time. Never plastic, never glazed ceramic. Terracotta breathes through its walls and passively pulls excess moisture out. That passive regulation is worth more than any moisture meter you can buy. You have the right cut, the right leaves, the right substrate, and this next mistake is the one I told you about at the very beginning. Mistake number 4. You are overwatering your cuttings. 90% of propagation attempts end right here. Not at the cutting, not at the substrate. Here, every instinct tells you to water something that is wilting. But that wilt is almost never thirst. It is almost always the opposite. Roots do not grow toward water that is already there. Roots grow toward water that is just out of reach. The cutting needs to feel a slight moisture tension, a gentle pull in the substrate, to trigger root production. When the substrate is constantly wet, the cutting has no biological reason to produce roots at all, and in constantly wet substrate, the rot fungi present in every growing medium have exactly the conditions they need to take that stem end apart. After the initial moistening at planting, do not water again until the top half-inch of substrate feels completely dry to the touch. Any dampness at all, wait. When it is dry at the surface and barely damp 1 inch below, water once, lightly, and let it return to dry. Day 1 through day 7. No additional watering. The cutting is not drinking. There are no roots to drink with. A slight wilt in the late afternoon of day 4 or 5 is normal. That is the cutting under exactly the right stress to drive root production. A collapsed cutting at 8 in the morning is rot, not drought. Soft brown stem end means the substrate was too wet. Mistake number 5 is the reason cuttings that survive the water still never root. Mistake number 5. You're giving your cuttings direct sun. Direct sun is the fastest way to kill a cutting that has survived everything else correctly. Sun drives transpiration, the process by which a plant loses water through its leaves. In an established plant, roots replenish what leaves lose. Your cutting has no roots. The moment direct afternoon sun hits those leaves, the cutting loses moisture faster than the cut stem can absorb. Within hours, the leaves curl. Within a day, they are crisp, bright, indirect light only, 4 to 6 hours per day. 2 to 3 feet back from a south-facing window, or outside in morning sun only, before 10 in the morning, then open shade through the afternoon. If you garden in Georgia, Texas, Alabama, or anywhere, July afternoons hit 95 degrees, north-facing porch, east-facing wall, under the canopy of a large tree. The cutting needs to see the sky, not the sun. Mistake number 6. You're not managing humidity. In a standard American home in summer with air conditioning running, indoor humidity drops to 30 or 40%. The cutting is losing more moisture from its leaves than it can replace without roots. Take a clear 1-gallon Ziploc bag and place it over the cutting and its container. Not sealed tight. Leave the bottom open or crack the top an inch. You are slowing moisture loss while still allowing air exchange. A fully sealed bag creates mold. The goal is slow, not stopped. Check inside daily. Light, even condensation on the interior walls is exactly right. Heavy running water droplets. Remove the tent for 2 hours. Bone dry inside. Mist the inside of the bag lightly, never the cutting itself. Day 1 through day 10, tent on at all times. Day 10 through day 14, Remove it 2 hours each morning, then replace. Day 14 onward, remove entirely. If the cutting wilts and does not recover within an hour, replace the tent for another 7 days. Your grandmother used mason jars turned upside down over small terracotta pots. Same principle. Costs nothing. Mistake number 7. You're taking cuttings at the wrong time, from the wrong part of the plant. Timing and placement on the parent plant are the foundation. Get them wrong and a perfect cutting in perfect substrate under perfect light will still never root. For hydrangeas, the window is late June through mid-August, when the new season's growth has firmed up but is still green and pliable. Bend the stem gently. If it snaps cleanly, ready. Bends without breaking, still too soft. Won't bend at all. Too woody, wait 1 week. For heritage roses, late spring through early summer from non-flowering stems only. A flowering stem spends every unit of its energy on the flower. Find a stem that has just finished blooming or carries no bud. Strip it to 2 leaves at the top, cut 1/4 inch below the lowest node, and you have the right material. Always take from the outer edge of the plant, from a stem that receives good light. Interior stems are weak and reaching for light. Outer stems are primed. Take the cutting in the morning, before the heat of the day. A cutting taken at 7 in the morning from a well-watered plant is biologically different from the same stem taken at 2 in the afternoon. Morning cuttings wilt slower, root faster, and survive the first critical week at dramatically higher rates. 7 mistakes, all 7 corrected. And right here, this is the moment most people lose everything they just built correctly. They pull the cutting out to check for roots. A cutting that has just formed its first roots is the most fragile thing in your garden. Those roots are attached to the stem end by the thinnest possible tissue. The moment you pull it out and push it back in, every one of those roots breaks off at the base. The cutting goes back to day 1. Do not pull the cutting. Grip it between 2 fingers at the very base. Apply upward pressure barely heavier than the weight of your own hand. If it holds its ground, roots are there. Walk away for 7 more days. If it slides free with no resistance, reinsert gently. Come back in a week when you feel that first real resistance, when the cutting holds firm and you can see the first white threads just visible at the drainage hole of your terracotta pot. That is the moment. Thin, white, alive. That hydrangea the nursery charges $24 for, yours. That heritage rose sitting in a nursery pot for $38, yours. Run 7 cuttings this summer through this exact process, and you have kept over $200 in your own pocket from a plant you already own. Cut, root, plant, nothing else required. Now, one question. Tell me in the comments, what plant are you trying to root, and how many days did your last cutting survive before it failed? The number alone tells me exactly which of these 7 mistakes ended it. Drop it below. I read every single one. If this saved a cutting you were about to lose, hit that like button. And if you want to keep getting this, subscribe. 1 click is all it takes.